In this section, we're going to have an overview of the tool called SAP Business Objects Analysis, analysis for short. So basically, this is a tool that can be used to perform a OLAP analysis. As shown here, it's best suited for power users such as business analysts. I think everybody is familiar with Excel. It's a very common business tool, and as a result, SAP has decided to take advantage of that and created this tool as an add-in to Excel, so that people can use this tool to perform OLAP analysis, as well as to use Excel for enhanced features or functionality in creating an application. Here it says that it is recommended as successor to Bags Analyzer. Okay, I mean, people have been talking about that for many years, that Bags Analyzer will go away, but it hasn't happened, and probably won't happen for a few more years. Okay, so, but I think in the future, more and more application will be done using analysis as opposed to analyzer. But the two are actually very similar, as you will find out later. Okay. This slide shows the position of several related tools. Okay, one is the analysis for Microsoft Office. Okay, this is the version that we'll focus on. But also talked about earlier that they have a similar version, but for OLAP. So if you want to use this version, you need to have an OLAP server. Okay, whereas with Microsoft Office Edition, you just need to have Microsoft Office installed on your computer, which most people do. And I think that's why this version is also more popular. Okay, so I guess as shown here, if we are doing analytical applications, we can use either analysis for Microsoft Office or Design Studio. Okay, and the difference between Design Studio and analysis for Office is that Design Studio is a web-based product. You will run you will develop as well as to run the application in a web browser, basically. Okay, whereas with this, you will do this everything on your desktop using Excel, basically. And this version of analysis, again, is web-based, but also you will use that mostly for ad hoc applications. Okay, not for your regular recurring business applications. Okay, for your regular applications, you probably want to use this analysis for Microsoft Office. All right, again, three related products: Design Studio, analysis for Microsoft Office, analysis for OLAP. So again, we'll focus on the edition for Microsoft Office. Okay. Again, this is part of the Microsoft Excel add-in. So you access this tool through the add-in button in Excel, and basically allows multi-dimensional analysis or OLAP analysis. Okay, just like Bags Analyzer that you have used before, you can perform similar operations, and we can use any queries, query views, BW info providers. So again, similar to BACS analyzer. And the data is displayed in the workbook in crosstabs. Okay, so crosstabs are basically analysis grid that you have learned in BACS analyzer. Okay, remember when you create an application in BACS analyzer in the design mode, you will use the data grid icon, which is kind of like a table. Okay, basically your data will be stored in a table, or in this analysis case, they call it crosstabs. Okay, and we can use drag and drop just like in BACS analyzer, and if necessary, we can enhance functionality using a VBA. Okay, so that's added advantage of having this version. So data connectivity options, again, we can access any queries, info providers in BW. We can also access data that is stored in SAP HANA. Okay, so all kinds of possibilities there. And for our exercise, we'll be using a query that is stored in BW. Okay. And by the way, the data may be accessed through the Business Objects Enterprise portal or not. Okay, so that's actually in the middle here. This is optional. So for our exercise, we don't have that portal installed, so you can just skip that screen and go to a BW directly. Okay. So again, we can access data through a query or without a query, okay, directly to an info provider that is in BW. Functionality, again, very similar to BACS analyzer you've learned to use before. And also there are some additional processing that you can perform after your report is built. Then you can use conditional formatting to change the colors of certain data cells. You can apply filters and so on. Okay, and of course you can add charts using Excel functionality, currency conversion, convert to PowerPoint, and so on. Okay. This is the analysis ribbon. Yeah. So here you have all the icons that you can use to perform different tasks. Okay. A little bit about the terminology or concepts that are used in this tool, and you will find a lot of similarities between the concepts here and the ones in BACS analyzer. Okay, because basically the two are very compatible. So data source again is either a query or an info provider. Dimension is the same as characteristic in BW. And crosstab, as I mentioned earlier, that is basically the analysis grid in BACS analyzer. Okay, and design panel is where you you will design your reports. You put in columns and rows and so on. Okay, analysis ribbon where you have all the menu items. And then the context menu is simply you right click and you see the context menu. So here is a screenshot of the main components in their user interface. Characteristics, dimensions are shown here. okay, like distribution channel, material. Here then cost of goods sold and discount are key figures, right? Or also known as measures in analysis. Okay, so basically you just put dimensions and measures in columns and rows, and this is very similar to pivot tables in Excel. By the way, if you have learned pivot tables before, you just drag and drop whichever column you want into, whichever field you want, okay, whether it's characteristic or dimension or key figure or measure, you just drag and drop over to columns and rows, and now you have your first version of your reports. And then you can add a filter to filter the result. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think you drag the fields from here, okay, from this window to columns and rows. And they also have a version for PowerPoint, actually, so you can actually create your report in PowerPoint as opposed to Excel. But I think it's probably easier to create that in Excel, and then you can export the result to a PowerPoint so that you can make a presentation using PowerPoint to your managers later on. Okay, so again, once you have your report built and you're satisfied with the output and the format, you can then export the analysis to a PowerPoint for presentation. A little bit more about the features in this tool. In the design panel, you have 3 views. Okay, keep that in mind. Otherwise, you may not be able to see all the components that are talked about in the exercise. Okay, remember there are 3 tabs here: one for analysis, one for information, one for components. Okay. And the features or the key terms, again, talked about some of them before, but additionally, conditional formatting here is the same as exceptions in Query Designer. Okay, so remember that when you learn to add exceptions to your queries, you can do so using conditional formatting in analysis. And then when you filter by measure, okay, that will be conditions in Query Designer, okay, or in BW. When we create queries, we can create conditions which are basically filter values for your measures or for your key figures. Okay, and you can also perform calculations if necessary. Okay. And you can also manipulate hierarchies. You can break hierarchies and so on, for instance, to display all the data at once without any hierarchy levels. Planning tab allows you to perform planning applications, which we will not get into detail here. All right, but that's available if in the future if you need to do so. Again, more mapping between the key terms or concepts in analysis, between analysis and BW Query Designer or Query Elements. Okay, I think you should be familiar with most of them. Like we talked about, characteristic in BW is the same as dimensions. Okay, hierarchy is the same. Key figure is a measure. Calculate the key figures, filter. variables become prompts in analysis. Okay, so if you have defined variables in your queries, there will be prompts in analysis so that the user can enter data accordingly. Exceptions are conditional formatting. I just mentioned that, and so on. Okay. Yeah, okay. Again, Excel Power Table is kind of similar to what you will be using in analysis for Office. Again, some useful resources if you want to learn more about this wonderful tool.